My name is Jon Yoo from Suger. This is the first thing ever we've done in this office, so this is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Michael, how does that feel?
yeah, I told you, it's a beautiful space. It's in the right location.
Yeah.
I said, I'm paying you too much.
Well,
I threw you off, yeah.
No, but because you're just gonna edit it.
Yeah.
But really excited to be here with Michael. And for those that might not know you, why don't you do a little bit of introduction about what you do and what Kong does?
Yeah, so I'm Michael Musselman. I lead our global cloud alliances at Kong. Kong is a leader in API gateways and API governance. The company's been doing this for many years. 6-time Magic Quadrant leader up in the top right.
Yeah.
And recently we've taken kind of like plugins to the platform around AI, and it's kind of shaped a brand new product that's like really market leading in this AI connectivity. And so that's kind of what Kong does. That's one personality. The second personality is a few years ago, me and a couple friends started AWS's largest partner community called Pecan. So it's a nonprofit, and I kind of balance between doing my full-time job and where I get paid. And then every once in a while I get the opportunity to 500 plus members globally to just like talk to my peers. It gives us a cool conduit for AWS to come in and speak to members and get very specific feedback. And so that's kind of the passion project, but between the two personas, I show up at different events doing two things.
No, I mean, I remember meeting for the first time like 2.5, 3 years ago and just thinking, wow, this guy's what is it? What do you call it? Celebrity influencer, subject matter expert.
So weird. So weird. It's weird when people come up and they're like, "Hey, I feel like I know you. I've watched your YouTube or something." I'm like, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, I remember demoing our product the first time to you, not at Kong, but at the prior company, and the level of question and kind of the expertise that you had was unlike any demo that I remember, and that really opened my eyes of like, okay, we really need to push the product in a whole new innovative way that would really kind of fit the go-to-market space in a way that I hadn't imagined it before. So one, I do want to thank you for that.
Cool.
But then second, as you think about your biggest problem now that you're at Kong, what does that look like? What keeps you up at night?
It's a great question. I think I generally I consider myself kind of an entrepreneur inside of my company. And running partnerships and alliances specifically, AWS, we're built on AWS, we have instance on Google and Azure, but I mean, these are like 3 best friends that I can't really invite to the same birthday party because they don't get along. And one I lean to and we're closer to than the other two, but these companies, there's just one of them, and I get one shot making a first impression, making friends, and honestly, what better friend to have than a company that's doing like AWS is what, $140+ billion ARR with millions of customers and all the gifts that you can imagine that can transform your business. So I always just keep this in mind. I even tell my executives like, hey, we need them, they don't need us. So like we have to keep that in mind. So usually the things that I think about is no matter where we are, like there's a bunch of stuff I want to go do. I want to get executive sponsorship and lean in on our side. I know the things that these guys care about in us, and it's like they measure us through pipeline, they measure us through marketplace. So it's just about, honestly, I put a mirror up, it's been 5 months, but most of the time we're staring at ourselves. Like what are we doing right? What can we do differently? And it's just doing it faster. So I will now feed into your product, which is a lot of the stuff that we have to do to be a great cloud partner. It's a lot of human and manual. And this is the first time I've been a customer, but I've been friends with you. I've talked to you over the years. And the way I solved this before, I had a pretty big team. So I had humans doing a lot of stuff that now the tech, the API, like now you're doing a lot of things that I used to have people on my team that woke up every day and had to do manually. So that's pretty fun. And so I now think, okay, well now I can just go faster. I can do more with less. And that's pretty exciting.
I mean, especially given the relationship with AWS and how big it is, you really want to focus on how do we be on the road and meeting partners instead of doing a lot of the manual ops stuff.
Correct.
Like I had someone that's telling me like they're the highest paid data entry person in the country, and I think when you think about partnerships, those are oftentimes overlooked as a core part of the job. And so, going back to the point that you had made of the relationship with hyperscalers, how do you stand out in a sea of partners? I mean, you matter they matter to you, you don't matter to them.
Yeah.
In that scenario, I hear from the hyperscaler folks, hey, I have thousands of partners reaching out to me, all trying to get introductions into this given account.
Yeah.
And I need some way to stack rank it or some way for these partners to stand out. I'm curious if you have a kind of a maybe best guidance around that.
I do. When I started doing this it's probably coming close to 8 years ago, there weren't that many partners that were leaned in, right? I'm using an AWS term. And there was nothing available to learn, right? There was two vendors of your space. Very few partners were transacting or listed on the marketplace. It wasn't like I could go to YouTube or read a book or blogging. Like, there was nothing. So you really felt like you were in this dark room with a little baby flashlight, like trying to navigate the program. But to answer the question, and also, like, I did start meeting my peers, some I competed with and some not, and it was actually the catalyst for why we started Pecan and why we put out so much content now. Is we kind of democratized what best practices look like, and over time, the community, we share stuff on Slack, AWS comes on and shares a lot of stuff. So there is a way for you to learn now. To answer your question, there's really, I explain this a lot. There's 3 metrics that all the clouds care about. In fact, I could almost translate this, like if I'm partnering with Accenture or like, partnerships are pretty straightforward, but if they're looking at me through a lens, there's 3 things that, like, I know I got to get right. One of them I can't really control, but it's my own consumption. And I always say, it is what it is. Like, the more I spend, the better of a customer I am. Probably the more stuff I can ask for, the more friends I'm gonna make. Like, it just is what it is. But I can't really control that. Now, the other 2, you can look at different measures, but it does come around pipeline TCV. So, like, how much pipeline am I sharing and how much am I launching and winning and how much revenue is that? So if I'm a really small company, that's gonna be a small number. But even if I'm doing 10 million in ARR as a business, as a new company, or less, but all of that pipeline is being shared, the concentration is really high, you're more likely to start to make friends and you're sharing in overabundance. If I'm a big software company and this is a new thing to me, it's scary, there's a lot of things to do, but I'm just telling you, like, that's how your friend is looking at Snowflake and Databricks and Mongo and you as this little startup. So that's one. The second one that you can control, this is the third attribute, is around marketplace. The right term in AWS is called GSS, it's gross software sales or TCV, but that's the other thing. So even as a small company, I wasn't always Michael Musselman, and I didn't always work for a big company like Kong or when I worked at Lacework. I was employee 68 to Lacework. There was 10 sales reps. We were, I think, sub 20 million in ARR. We were, and we ended up building a really strong partnership and a great relationship, especially with AWS. And we got into all the partner programs and everything else. So part of it is, like, know the lens and the scorecard that they're measuring you. The second is, like your best friends, you probably have very few of them. You generally know what you guys are both into. You're aligned on things and it's a win-win kind of relationship, but these are big companies, so you kind of have to give to get. So that's not an exact answer. I mean, there are some specific metrics, but that's kind of where you start. And the hard part is just rinse, repeat, keep doing it, keep meeting people, keep networking, keep making friends. And eventually what I always say is friends help friends.
So going a little bit deeper into the pipeline piece. I think I hear a lot of concerns of, hey, if I share my opportunities with AWS, for example, could they screw up my deal? Or even deciding which deals should I be sharing? What can I expect out of them? Could you elaborate a little bit more or how you would answer that question?
There's a few ways that I've said this. So number one, when I join companies, I usually am fortunate enough to talk to the CEO, talk to the chief revenue officer, VP of sales. I'm always trying to figure out how guarded or gated, or do I have to fight them for this in the beginning? So I wouldn't join a company where this is, like, already super unnatural, or when I bring this up that it's like, no, you're not allowed to do that because I already know, like, the outcome is already written for me. We're never going to have a partnership here. The second side of that, though, is if you are concerned, I have never had to ask AWS this, but I've asked many leaders at AWS about this. They don't do that.
Yeah.
They have so many partners, and all partnerships are rooted in trust.
Yeah.
And if they did this, I'm saying it's not impossible. There could be rogue salespeople, but generally they don't do this. So partner registrations, they have two sales forces. They are connected, but like there's very few things that kind of cross the boundaries.
Yeah.
But that behavior is not really tolerated at AWS. So if you find yourself in a position where that's ever happened, that's actually a terminable offense. AWS has an escalation culture, so they don't mind you going straight to the top and saying this happened or go investigate this stuff. So they don't tolerate that top to bottom. But I would say, it's just not that way. And the same is true, like if I'm competing with 3 other vendors, like your space is an example, and we all register deals, they do kind of have to play neutral Switzerland.
Right.
You know, they might share the same kind of information with each.
Yeah.
Usually as a partner that has competitors that are also actively playing, there's 2 ways that I explain this to my company. Number one is, well, if all of our competitors are doing it, at Lacework, I knew Palo was doing this. So it's like, we're kind of left out. Like, do we want them co-selling with our competitor and not us? Like, we have to do this just so they know we're in this account or in this opportunity. Same with renewals. A lot of companies don't share renewals, and I always go, hey, that's new business for some other company. Like, they don't remember, maybe it's a new account manager or something. Like, you have to be there. They have to know that you're still in the account. Yeah. So sharing pipeline is, you just kind of have to do it. But there's a couple sides for sure. With my sales leaders, it's like, how can we want their help? Yeah. Well, how do they help us if they don't know we're in this account or this is a customer or we're in this opportunity? So you kind of have to do this, and usually for me it's like a little bit of a culture, but I can't tell you from the other side. Yeah. That's not how they use the data. That's not their intention. Right. If you compete with an AWS service, newsflash, they're going to compete with you. Right. But they don't really look at it the same way. Like, oh, I saw this lead come in. Oh, that gives me an opportunity to go sell AWS API Gateway against Kong. They don't really do that. Yeah. But if the customer says, hey, we're looking at Kong. I know you have a gateway. Can you demo and show us this? Their SAs and their specialists will always do what the customer asks. And so you'll feel like you're competing with them, but that's not really the case. Yeah. So I always tell my company, like, hey, if we compete with AWS, it is what it is. If we don't, give it time, because they will compete with you. Right. And the third is, this is on us to keep innovating and building better technology and figuring out our better together, but also where we're differentiated. So it's on you to outperform this big company that isn't great at anything, but they have a lot of specific, 350 services. Yeah. I mean, everyone competes with hyperscalers at some point, I feel like. Yeah. If you play them for even us. You do. They built a native Salesforce connector, right? It's like, which ones are you going to push? Well, at the end of the day, what's best for the customer? And I think the best analogy that was given to me is, hey, you're on the train, but then there's this freight train coming down you, and that is AWS, so you always have to be outpacing them. And I think that's probably good for the market overall. Yeah. Now, you're probably pretty amazing at this, which is having conversations with C-suite around the value of cloud go-to-market and getting their buy-in. Mm-hmm. What do you think are some things, and maybe there's a question or advice for me, what do you think the C-suite members get most wrong about cloud partnerships? That's a great question. I'm veering off the talk track. But it's better. So like, I have a YouTube channel with Andrew Morris. We're both in Pecan. Yeah. It's called Beyond Co-Sell, and we do talk a lot about this stuff. Yeah. And the neat part is we kind of started recording this. We do it about a half hour a week, but we started recording this as I was interviewing, and then I've kind of even had some of these conversations in Kong. So to answer your question, CEO, CTO, or founders, CFOs, CRO, they're all different. So you kind of have to think about their job, what they're responsible for, and what they're trying to do, because those conversations are all different. But, I think if I had to put the ELT or the C-level all in a little box, the first things people get wrong with the hyperscalers is they might have not had an experience, or when they were coming up to this CFO level, they were working at companies that, this motion is 7 or 8 years real. Yeah. So if you didn't work at a software company or a company that had a marketplace listing, had woven this in, were used to co-selling, understood this ecosystem, you're going to either think of AWS as the vendor you buy your SaaS from, a channel partner like your traditional channel partners, and you're going to take your knowledge, your experience, and you might bring all of that into like how this should work, or why aren't they bringing us business?
Yeah.
And that's probably the first mistake I see over and over. And we just got a new CFO.
Yeah.
And the first question he asked me is, he said, I got this net new money. Like, how much of that is AWS going to source for us?
Yeah.
And by the way, I've had 3 or 4 CFOs, and that's always the first question they ask. So I'm getting pretty prepared at answering that.
Yeah.
But the first thing is just like, well, the answer is probably 0. By the way, they sourced us good money last year. So like, it does happen, but it takes time.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times the analogy I'll use with an executive is, you know, if you went out in your backyard and planted an apple seed, and then you gave it food and water and some vitamins, you know, some fertilizer, and then it sprouted, and then it goes from a little sprout to a tree, and then eventually you get blossoms and an apple.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that was a 2 to 3 year journey, right?
I imagine you giving this analogy to the CFO.
I do it all the time. They probably have no tolerance for me. But I'm just trying to make sure that the expectation matches the reality.
Yeah.
And then I was like, look, the truth is the answer is not 0. It's just unpredictable. That's not what they're really good at. Let's talk about what they're really good at.
Yeah.
And that's where I talk about things like gifts and how our win rate is 1.5 times higher when AWS influences a deal than when it wasn't. And by the way, our deals were 4 times bigger in those deals. So we should do more of that.
Yeah.
We talked about, you know, marketplace. We're a US-based company. We have people all over the world, but can you imagine that we're transacting in countries like Brazil with the 2P, that's like they're acting as a disty, and we're avoiding like painful taxes for the end customer.
Yeah.
We're transacting in all these local currencies across the globe, and they're doing the conversion. And I say, we get mailbox money.
Yeah.
I said, it's probably not what you want, but can you imagine selling to a small company and being able to use flexible payments and break down an annual contract into manageable payments to get a deal done? Maybe not our first priority, but like, we'd rather get $1 than $0. So like, let's get flexible and creative. We've used all these tactics, you know, selling into countries where we don't have, you know, a business, legal entities. Like, that stuff's really expensive.
Super hard. Yeah.
Like, for a small software company, we get that with these partners. They make all these cool things available to us. That's a huge way to accelerate and grow your market without hiring a bunch of people. We go into new countries, we hire 1 sales rep, maybe an SE. Can you imagine? We already have partner distribution. Like, AWS is there in all these places for us. Yeah, we might not get a lot of pipeline, but we might be in a market where they need our help. So we're finding ourselves in some countries where we're actually have a bigger footprint or differentiated customers, and the cloud's not really a big thing there. And so AWS is then helping us, and that's kind of neat. So there's a lot of levers in those conversations, but you have to kind of figure out. I usually look them up and figure out where their past is and what those experiences are like. I might ask them, like, hey, I saw you at this company or that company. Like, how was that cloud team like? A lot of times I know my peer over there. I was like, oh, I know so-and-so over there. Like, what was that like? How would you learn from that? Or, you know, I'm just trying to get them to open up. I'm also usually trying to figure out what's important to them. So if the CFO, speak their language, know what they care about. This might have been hard to do before. Newsflash, you can use any LLM today and go say, act as a CFO. I'm going to have a conversation with you. What are the 5 things you care about? And come to that thing kind of prepared. You know, that might help you a little. But I think these are things where you have to meet them where they are. There is some value, but you kind of have to have all of these tools in your tool belt and figure out like what's the right approach or answer for each of these depending on their role.
You know, some of the biggest things I think people want help is trying to convince their leadership team on the value of cloud go-to-market. And oftentimes it does feel like a little overwhelming, right? Because there's so many benefits, so many things that they need to understand of, hey, how's it going to change if we do billing through marketplace or you know, quote to cash, et cetera, et cetera. Curious, like, and I've seen people have, you know, ROI models to explain things. Like, is there a piece of asset you think would best prepare a lot of these partnership leaders to have that conversation outside of, you know, of course, ChatGPT and throughout, you know, Claude?
Yeah, it's I don't. The funny thing about like ROI is it's probably different for every company depending on how they value partnerships, their own background.
Yeah.
If you believe AWS should be your best friend or Google, I always say, like, by the time you hire me, you kind of like, I'll build you a strategy, but you kind of already built the strategy for me.
Yeah.
Where's your infrastructure bill? Where's your AI bill?
Right.
Where's your, if you said, oh, we're using Azure for all this stuff, whatever, I'm like, newsflash, like, you're going to start as Azure as a go-to-market partner, and you're going to start in the Azure marketplace. Wait, all our prospects are in AWS and all this other stuff, and I kind of have to forcefully, like, well, you kind of didn't align who you were selling to and where you built it in the same place. Like, I don't blame you. Why would you know that? Yeah. Oh, well, all our engineers were like Google engineers, so they built it all on Google, but we're selling to, like, sometimes that matters, sometimes it doesn't, but not all customers care where you're built. Like, they just have a problem. Does your solution solve that problem? But the flip side of that is, if you're trying to build a partner and a go-to-market, was the first thing I said, consumption. Yeah. And then there's steeper and harder rules for that. So I think, like, to the ROI question, the return is hard. Yeah. If you're gonna measure it, like, how much source business do I get from this partner? Like, I measure all my other partners, you're probably gonna be disappointed. I would just say, don't plant the seed. Right. Because what happened, and then I also say, hey, remember that seed you planted? What happens if you stop watering it in 9 months? Yeah. You never get apple trees. Yeah. So once you plant the seed, be prepared to, like, care and feed. Yeah. But if this doesn't fit right and your expectations are that I'm gonna get apples in 6 months, this isn't that. Yeah. Co-sell is free. Marketplace is 3%. Yeah. If you need apples today, you walk down the street, go to the market, you buy some apples. It's a different cost model. Right. You have to give away margin, you have to give away, like, in that real world, but it's just different. Yeah. So this is it's a longer tail, but if you believe that I'm competing with AWS, they need to know about me. I believe that they should be a big partner, or I'm hearing about all these programs and SCAs and MPOP, and, like, I'm hearing all these words. I don't know what they mean yet, but sounds like all my other partners. Competitive threat is another. When I got to Lacework, we were competing with bigger companies. Yeah. Palo Alto is a great example, great company. Like, I'm watching them, and I'm just telling my sales team, like, do you think we're putting us as a disadvantage in deals because we're not doing the things that they're doing? And I used competitive threat to accelerate my team and some of my goals too. So, not a straight answer. I don't think it's a formula. Yeah. Because the typical formula is, I spend this much people. The way I think about it with me and my team, am I adding more value to the company than we cost? Yeah. Now, that's return on investment, but I'm using the word value because sometimes, look, I've helped negotiate PPAs and SCAs, and so I'm saving the company millions of dollars. I don't cost them millions of dollars. We're making money. We're accelerating revenue. We're tapping and opening new markets. Like, it's hard to put a dollar value on all that stuff. Yeah. That's why I've been very cautious to say, throw this partnership in the channel box, and we're going to measure it the same way we measure our resellers or our referral partners. It doesn't work that way.
It's really hard because I think, especially as a company that's first looking into marketplace and kickstarting their co-sell motion, they're oftentimes thinking, well, I got to be able to put a target around this, right? What is a goal that we need to track against? Yes. And that forecasting process, it feels impossible sometimes, because I've tried to help customers on those aspects, and you're kind of pulling numbers out of your butt sometimes. I mean, we have benchmark data, of course, but every company's different, and I always go back to, well, it really depends on how much you want to invest in this channel, and
marketplace is different. I've said this analogy many times. If I walk down the street, there's a Starbucks like over there. Yeah. And I order my cup of coffee, and it's a few bucks. Yeah. And then I have to pay for it. Yeah. Carrying cash, got a couple credit cards. Yeah. Like, that's your choice as a consumer. Yeah. But Starbucks accepts all those forms of payments. Right. Amex, Apple Pay, Google Pay, cash. Yeah. Because they want the money. They want the money, right? Yeah. So like I always think of this from the other way. Take the consumer, but we're enterprise businesses. Yeah, I want to take the Amazon card and the Google card, the Azure card. Like I just, it's hard enough to sell anything. It's hard enough for my sales team to sell anything.
Right.
The last thing I want them thinking about is like, oh, do we accept that form of payment? And by the way, just like your personal credit cards, oh, my United card gives me this and my Amex card gives me that. And I have benefits tied to these things, which the cloud providers, you know, this is their Hunger Games I've been saying lately. This is like season 3, they got all the rules, but like they're controlling those benefits. I don't. I just want to be able to accept them. So if I'm a small company or when I talk to founders, I go, hey, you're probably not ready to worry about a go-to-market, hire me or anyone I know, but I would strongly consider accepting the marketplace where, like, figure that out. It's an operational thing. You guys make it much, much easier and faster and guide them, but go do that first.
Right.
Even before you worry about go-to-market partner, registering deals, co-sell, like you'll get there. Do that first. So that metric people do. Now, the question is, when I close my books at Starbucks at the end of the day, you think they really care how much came through Amex versus Visa? Not really. They just want revenue. So if you can measure, you know, the Forrester's done this, you know, like if I can measure my marketplace deals are bigger than my non-marketplace deals, that is true at Kong. Awesome. Should we do more? Customer choice. But the data is telling us that that's the case. If I can tie a benefit, like I mentioned, MPOP, like a marketplace promotion, that's great. Like I can help maybe customers get a discount or a rebate back from AWS, but also it might help me do more through the marketplace. And what were the 3 metrics? Marketplace was one of them. So newsflash, the more of that I do, the better the partnership I have. So they are all connected, but it is really hard to put a formula or a box around it or just say, hey, here's my ROI. And I do think, in most companies, in our company, we do think of cloud partnerships different than our traditional channel and our SI business.
Makes sense. Now, changing tunes a little bit, I've been chasing you for like 2.5, 3 years now at this point. You finally joined the company that is a Suger customer. You're now using our product. How are you liking it? What do you find to be the most useful use case that our product has allowed, or what can we be better on?
So if I put my consultant hat on, like when I'm wearing the pecan hat, I have been obviously close to you and all of your peers. I have used other tools in the past. I think when people come to me and ask me what they should use, just like there's no one size fits all.
Absolutely.
What's important to you? Where are you in this journey? Do you care about co-sell or marketplace? Like there are a bunch of things, and each of you have your own unique differentiation, which is why you've all been successful, and it's a big market where everyone can win. That being said, you make a great product. If I take any credit years ago when I first met you, I remember telling you, like, think about doing some of these things. And now as a customer, I see that you listened and you did a lot of the things that I was like, oh, this would be pretty cool. The workflow stuff is hard. I know you're making it easier, but I think that's for an advanced user, but someone like me that kind of knows what the finish line looks like. I've run this race before. How do I get there? I think that's great. I think you've taken that workflow engineering mindset, you and your co-founder, like it actually it's incredibly powerful. So that part has been good. And for us, it's like, okay, where are we? What are we doing? How do we do a couple more things? We were still building marketplace kind of manually, but we owned you. So now we're going through that, mapping our CPQ and all our order form stuff. So like, that's awesome too. So just to get out of the manual stuff, I always think of things for us, my team, ops, deal desk, whatever, high value, low value. Like if you guys can help us do the low value stuff in a more automated way, awesome. We have more time to spend doing higher value activities. And then the partnerships get better, the return on value gets better, all that stuff is better too. So direct answer, great product, haven't had any issues. The CSMs that support us have been great. I cheat because I get access to you too, but I haven't actually bugged you or asked you to escalate anything. So that's probably tells you that I haven't needed to.
Yeah, I mean, we were chatting to the side around the CPQ mapping to be able to automate the private offer process.
Yeah.
And, I'm really excited that you guys are going to get out of having to create private offers manually.
Yeah.
And hopefully your deal desk team won't think of it as too big of a burden to carry on now.
It's not, it's a problem that you can solve with people,
Yeah.
but should you?
Yep.
And so the second I decide to accept that Amazon,
Yeah.
AWS credit card, should you do it by yourself?
Yeah.
Right? Maybe to get started, you got to figure out all the processes, whatever, but day 2, 3, if you're fortunate enough where a lot of customers want to buy this way, you start doing more and more of these, you're doing them all over the globe, wow, that's probably pretty scary. Yeah. Now, the utopia for me, it'll take me a little while, kind of crawl, walk, run, but I'd love my sales team, which it's not that the capability's not there, it's like a education and trust, and it's a little bit of that, and enablement. But yeah, why can't my sales team create a quote, click a button, boom, there goes the private offer. Yeah. And I think some of your customers have gotten there, and I think for us, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Because the more I can do with less and the more I can distribute this out right into the sales team's hands, or let them submit it, let the ops team kind of review it. Now I've just saved time from the ops team, both creating, doing CPQ mapping. That's a lot of like, oh, copy this, paste it here, copy that. Like that's all time saving.
Yeah.
So generally, AI has helped a lot of companies operate faster. I think this is another way that your integrations with AI, stuff that AWS and others are building, but just how do I do more with the same? How do I do more?
Right.
How do I do it faster? How do I spend time doing higher value activities than lower value activities?
Yeah. So. Speaking of AI, we'd be remiss if we did not talk about it at least once.
Of course.
Tell me a little bit about, how Kong is thinking about AI and how that's changing the landscape, maybe around product strategy, or how people, how Kong could be a benefactor from this big revolution that is happening.
I don't really talk about my own superpower and secret sauce, but I have been using workflow and AI in my co-sell business for a little bit of time. Yeah. Same thing. And I have found that to be incredibly helpful. And like I said, doing a lot of things today in an automated way that I used to do manually. So that has just been like for my practice, my business, giving value back to the company. Yeah. I think that's been, and I iterated in it all the time. So that part has been fun for me, taking these AI tools or even LLMs and like applying it to the work that I've been doing for 7 years. Yeah. Better, faster, whatever. So that's been fun.
Michael, at some point you're gonna have to share your secret sauce.
Nope.
The amount of times you're like,
yes, when I retire and you can hire me as a $300 an hour contractor, I will build it for everyone. But yeah, no, that's been part of it. Yeah. And because of the community, or even me doing this stuff in your product, the second I do it in your product, then everyone gets it. So I have to keep my own differentiation. Right. But I would say the other part of it is just like the AI stuff is exciting. Yeah. Kong builds AI and API gateways. Our connectivity layer, like I'm watching our customers. These are some of the biggest recognized brands, financial, consumer, like doing stuff with Kong. Spotify's an awesome example. This is a phenomenal engineering company. And if you use Spotify, there's this whole DJ thing and it's recommending tracks and all that stuff. It's awesome. Kong is behind that. Yeah. Doing like routing, helping with the AI, like making these personalized. So like, it's just neat to have all these stories. I fly United. United's a huge Kong customer. Yeah. I think they have the best mobile app and experience, and it's fun. Every time I'm clicking it, I'm like, I know all these API calls are going through Kong. So like, there's some fun customers, but the stories, but then as a consumer, I get to interact with these things. Yeah. So it's kind of scary how fast it's changing, but I think it's pretty cool. I just look at what's happening in the market and I start thinking like, cool, how's Suger going to use this and bring it into me? Yeah. We were at Global Partner Summit last week with AWS, and so they're using AI a lot, and they're bringing AI, to the partner as well. So I'm curious to see how that kind of evolves. It always starts off terrible, but it'll get better. That's just kind of how this stuff works. You guys are starting to build a facility to map that stuff back into me, that you're seeing my sale. So I think it'll be really fun. So the good news is there's no bad time to start. Yeah. And if you start tomorrow, cool, you get all this cool stuff that didn't exist 5 or 6 years ago.
Right, right. So to wrap things up, we like to finish it off on, one sweet thing and one bitter thing.
Okay.
It could be personal, professional, whatever you name it. What's one sweet thing for you?
Sweet thing. I actually think just, I'm here with you guys and like life is good, I'm healthy, my family's healthy, like everything's sweet in that sense. Business, I joined a great company with great people, great technology, that's fun. And being a first-time customer to Suger, I'm having a good experience, and you built a great product, and I appreciate that because it makes my job a little bit easier, and it allows me to return that value back for me and my team to the company. So that's definitely sweet. Bitter. Is this where I get to ask for like a feature request? No. Nothing really bitter. I mean,
it's a good outlook.
Yeah, we've had. There's been a couple snags in CPQ, but nothing insurmountable. And honestly, like engineers are listening. Prioritizing this versus other stuff. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Fun. Well, thanks so much for coming to our new office.
Yeah.
You're literally the first outsider to be in here, by the way.
Special.
We haven't even signed the lease agreement yet.
I'm surprised they let us use it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I really appreciate the time, and this was fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And actually, it's a really nice office. So I'm the first, but I won't be the last.
Sounds good.